NFL's new COVID crackdown, the league warning teams COVID outbreaks from unvaccinated players could lead to automatic forfeits and financial penalties if games have to be moved or canceled. Unvaccinated NFL players will reportedly be fined nearly $15,000 every time they violate COVID-19 procedures. The new policy is considered an incentive for players to get vaccinated, which is encouraged but not required. Joining me now is former NFL football player and CEO of the Brewer Group, Jack Brewer. Jack, what do you make of this plan from the NFL?
It's mind-blowing to think that the National Football League is losing coaches who have been in the league for over 30 years, and all of a sudden they're being forced out of the league. You have NFL players, some of the top NFL players in the league, like DeAndre Hopkins and so many others, who don't want to take the vaccine, and they're being told that their teams are going to have to forfeit games. Listen, it would be one thing if this vaccine had been FDA approved and everyone knew exactly what it would do to you. But it has not. This is an unproven vaccine. And unfortunately, the reality of that is that these guys who have worked so hard on their bodies, they are in the most pristine health of really anybody in our country, you're going to force a vaccine upon them when the facts show you that there's been 0 hospitalizations for NFL players. There's been 0 hospitalizations for any professional athlete or college athletes. And so to now force them to take this vaccine, I believe is absurd, Dagan. I know when I played in the NFL, they would give me shots and force me on the field after having concussions. You could have the flu. You could feel like you're going to die, and they force you out on the field. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to say that you're going to force these players to take a vaccine for something that won't kill them. It doesn't add up to me.
One thing I want to push back on, you said that the vaccine's unproven. There is a great deal of research that's been done on the efficacy of the vaccines against it's certainly hospitalization and death for people taking it. But I understand what you're saying about
but not this population, Dagan.
Not among,
the reason I say that is
among professional athletes, that caliber individual.
And that age group, I'm talking about that age group, Dagan. I just took my out-of-tech score that showed me exactly what my immunity is. And so if I have natural immunity that goes beyond what the vaccine could give me, there's no justice in forcing me to take that vaccine. That's what I mean by being unproven. You can't prove something if you're not taking into the account the natural immune status or the immune status of the individual that you're putting the vaccine in.
I'll agree with you.
Those tests have not been done.
I will agree with you on this, that having had COVID recently and having antibodies and having had an antibody infusion to boot. Now, I got the vaccine as soon as I was able to. I had to wait 90 days after my antibody infusion. But in this world, like having natural immunity from having had COVID, there's no wiggle room. You're either vaccinated or you're not vaccinated. And so I made the choice to get the vaccine, but to that point, they don't really give any credence to natural immunity or, I can prove I have antibodies. In terms of people who want you to be vaccinated, that doesn't matter. Do you think that, what does the Players Union have to say about this? Isn't that, I'm surprised that, are they on board with this policy?
That's something that I've been looking and waiting for and hoping for, that the Players Union would step up and say something about this, because really that's their duty. They're right in the middle between the players and the league. But when you see some of the salaries that are being paid to those that run the NFL Players Union, you start to wonder really what their political interests are, or should I say really who they're trying to protect here, because to me this is very serious. I know that, for me, my kids, my daughters in particular, I don't want to force this vaccine upon them until they have done better testing with it. And the fact that the NFL Players Association hadn't come up and stood up for these players, many of these guys, Dagan, are in the 24 to to 30 demographic. And if you look at some of their test scores, and I know I just said this, but I got an out-of-test score, and I mean, it showed that my immunity went well beyond what I could get from a vaccine. So if you take a vaccine, you could break that down. And so I think we're all individuals, and some people need the vaccine. A lot of people need the vaccine. But let's find out who needs it. And the NFL Players Association should be doing these type of tests. They should be running these type of studies on their own because they have the resources. And I just don't think it's fair when you see coaches like the coach Dennison from Minnesota, who's been in the league for over 35 years, won 2 Super Bowls, has been an amazing coach throughout the NFL. All of a sudden, he's forced to leave the NFL because he didn't want to take a vaccine. It just doesn't make sense. Most of these guys have already had the virus. Like myself, I've had it twice with no symptoms. And so it's just, you got to be smarter about how you're approaching this, and you got to stay righteous. And I just think that the league is doing this to be a little bit political.
And I had it, and it was a nightmare, and it was frightening. So that's why I chose to take the vaccine. And that's what I tell my friends and family members. I'm like, you don't want to catch this, particularly people who are older. Jack, thank you so much.
Right.
Great to see you, Jack Brewer.